So guys, one of the biggest features in Star Wars Hunters Season 5 is the mods. Now these mods completely changed the game, honestly, because you can have a scorer who normally has 150 health now go up to 210 at the very least. You can increase a hunter's weapon damage, you can lower cooldowns, you can create a tighter weapon spread pattern, but what does all of this stuff actually mean? When the update dropped, I saw a lot of people actually confused about all of the definitions on things, so that's what I want to go over in today's video. I'll be taking a look at all of the individual mod definitions, so that you guys actually know what you're getting when you buy some mods. But before I do get into that, make sure you are subscribed to the channel to stay fully up to date with all things Star Wars Hunters. But jumping straight into it, I'm going to start with Nox. So as you can see, I've got this Nox weapon damage one, and it just does +2 weapon damage. Now what does that actually mean? So at a base damage, Nox's arrows to the body do 80 damage, but if I have +2 weapon damage, that simply means the arrows will now do 82 damage instead of 80. Having a look at critical damage, if I have this equipped, by default Nox's crit damage is 180, however +30 critical damage means that a headshot will now do 210. Bow jaw duration is simply how long it takes Nox to be fully ready to fire her arrow after you press the shoot button. Obviously you can tap the shoot button and she'll fire a little bit, but she won't draw the bow all the way back. So if I have this mod equipped, it will take longer for me to draw the bow back. Now health is very self-explanatory, it just means that she'll have 25 health less than she usually does. As for combat speed and movement speed, this one's fairly similar, and I haven't necessarily had this confirmed, but movement speed is simply the speed at which you move around the battlefield whilst not shooting or doing anything like that. It's just your simple standard walking / running. Combat speed, however, is if Nox's bow was drawn, she would normally be a bit slower, but plus 10% combat speed means that she will actually be 10% quicker than she normally is. Now that's it for Nox's mods. I'm going to go over to Aran now because he's got some other ones. So as you can see, movement speed, combat speed on here, I've already gone through them already. Reload duration, however, you can see that it's -15%, and that's a good thing because it means that it's quicker to reload. Now you've also got cooldown, which is very similar. However, reload is if you actually press the reload button to cool down your weapons, that counts as reloading. So -15% simply means that it'll be 15% of a quicker or shorter reload duration. So if you completely overheat your blasters or press the overheat button, it will then do that, and that is your reload duration. Cooling speed delay and cooling speed is what I want to go now. So cooling speed delay and cooling speed are very similar. Cooling speed delay is essentially if you fired your blasters up to about half heat. The cooling speed delay is then the time at which that will then start to go back to normal, and the cooling speed is how fast that goes down. So it could take 1 second for the cooling speed to actually then start happening, and to go from 50 to 0, that's the overall cooling speed. So that's the distinction between the two of them. I've had that confirmed by Kaveri over on Discord as well. Ammo capacity, very self-explanatory. It means that with +6 ammo capacity, Aran can shoot 6 additional bullets, so 3 per blaster. And then you've got hip fire weapon spread. Now when you're firing with Aran, you'll notice that his bullets will go sort of all over the place. That essentially is the spread. So having a -30% hip fire weapon spread means that the spread in which all the bullets are flying out will be a lot tighter, so you'll be able to be a bit more accurate with that. And then rate of fire is simply how fast the bullets actually come out of the gun as well. So if you were to hold down the trigger, as you can see, it's +0.3 seconds, so it takes slightly longer to use all of the bullets. Damage fall off distance is one that I saw a lot of people asking questions about. Now the best way for me to explain this is by using actual numbers. So let's use Nox again, for example. You know that at base her damage is 80, so that could be the case at 20 meters. It could also be the case that she does 80 damage at 30 meters. However, at 40 meters she might only do 60 damage. So somewhere between that 20 and 30 meter range is where the damage fall off begins to decline. So if you look at damage fall off as a graph, and you have damage on the vertical axis and distance on the horizontal axis, it will start up right here at the top and it will go straight on for a while, and the damage fall off, you'll then see it go down and down until it reaches 0. So that's essentially what damage fall off is. And then hipfire weapon recoil, similar to spread, but instead of it being a case of bullets flying everywhere, it's just guns obviously going up. So if you start shooting in things like Call of Duty, you'll know that your gun wants to go up with recoil. That's essentially what this is. So having a hipfire weapon recoil go down, it means that you'll be able to be a lot flatter when you're shooting. Now on to Diago. He's got focused aim weapon recoil, which is essentially the exact same thing as hipfire. But obviously with Diago and Amara Vex, they can actually aim down the sight, which is focused aim. So when you're Diago and you're aiming down the sight, your weapon rate of fire is slower, but the recoil is quite significant. So this simply means that the recoil will be flatter, so you'll be even more accurate for your next shot. Obviously, Diago can also hip fire as well, so you can see the hip fire weapon recoil is there as well. And then focused aim spread, again, even though whilst in focused aim he fires one bullet at a time, there will still be a spread pattern somewhere, so it might shoot off slightly left, slightly right of the crosshair. So having an increase in the focused weapon spread means that it will actually fly around a little bit more, so you'll be slightly less accurate with doing that. So it means that you'll be slightly less accurate by applying this mod, but this mod seems to be more for a shorter range. Moving on to J3, you'll notice this deflect stamina and stamina recharge speed. So deflect stamina is simply the amount of time that J3 and also Reeve can actually block bullets with their lightsabers. So having plus 50 deflect stamina means that they can actually deflect for longer. Stamina recharge speed is a very simple one as well. It just means that your stamina will recharge quicker, or actually in this case it will recharge slower on this mod. So if you used 50% of your stamina, it would take 50% longer to actually recharge back to 100%. You've then also got stamina recharge delay, which is very similar to the cooling speed delay, in that if you use all of your stamina, or if you use even half of your stamina, at which point will your stamina actually start to recharge. So in this case, it would take half a second longer to then actually start going to recharge. So if you have this mod and this mod equipped, it would take half a second longer for the recharge to actually begin starting, but then once that recharge has started, it will take 50% longer as well. In this case, the stamina recharge delay will be 0.85 seconds quicker, and it will also recharge at 30% faster speed than normal. Having a look at Pilbush, she's got a number of new things that we haven't seen on anyone else yet, and this is shield damage and explosion radius. So shield damage is simply just a case of how much damage is she going to be doing to shielded things like Sentinel's shield, Slingshot, probably Chaos, potentially other Pilbushes when they're using their overload ability. So it's basically just the same as weapon damage but against shields. An explosion radius is simply how big or small is an explosion of her main weapons. So a minus 10% explosion radius means that once her grenades explode, it will actually be smaller than normal. Explosion damage is another simple one, in that let's say you're playing as Pilbush and you do 70 base damage when you hit someone directly. Well, opponents nearby with the explosion can actually take at least, I believe, 30 damage. But if you have this plus 25, I believe that means they'll be able to take 55 damage even if they're not directly hit. So if I hit a Scorer and I have Amara Vex standing next to her, then Scorer would take 70, but Amara Vex could take at least 55. But depending on the explosion radius, it could very well be less. Moving on to Scorer, you can see that she's got plus 4 healing. As you know, Scorer can heal allies when hitting them, but damage enemies when hitting them. So plus 4 healing is basically the same as weapon damage, but for allies. So it will just do 4 additional health on top of what her base is. Moving on to Groz, you've then got things like slow duration and slow effect. As you'll know, when using Groz's clubs, you can actually slow opponents. So slow duration is simply how long our opponents actually slowed for. So I don't actually know the official time, but with plus 0.15 seconds, that means the overall duration of an opponent being slowed down will be longer. And slow effect, you'll notice that it says plus 25%. And while slow duration is how long someone is slowed for, slow effect is how slow are they actually then going. So with this mod in particular, if you hit an opponent, they'll be slowed down for 0.15 seconds longer, and also at a 25% slower speed than normal. You've then got melee damage as well, which is the first time I saw this whilst looking through my Hunter roster. And that's essentially just the same as weapon damage, but obviously Groz's weapons are clubs, so he hits people with them. So instead of doing 40 damage at base, he'll do 50 with this mod. And then you'll notice that Chaos also has melee damage, but obviously she's also got a blaster, so she's then also got weapon damage. So weapon damage will be for her ranged blaster, melee damage will be for her shields. Glikkin is in a similar boat to Chaos in that he has a ranged and melee attack. He only has mods currently for melee damage, so there's nothing to do with his blasters on his wrist, but no doubt in future mods we could see that. So anything you see here to do with melee damage will apply to the first 2 hits of his attack, but you'll also notice that he has a combo move. So this melee damage, his base is 30, but on the 3rd hit of his attack he does 40, so the melee damage actually only applies to those first 2 hits. So plus 10 melee damage here means that if you do 3 hits with him in a row, you'll do 30, 30, then 40 as base, but with this mod it'll be 40, 40 and 40 rather than 40, 40, 50. Now you'll notice here that this mod says combo damage. Now that only applies to that third hit. So if I have plus 10 melee damage and plus 5 combo damage combined, that means you'll do 40 damage on the first hit, 40 damage on the second hit, and then 45 damage on the third hit. Now if I don't have any plus melee damages, but I have this plus 5 combo damage, that means you'll do 30 base on the first attack and the second attack, but 45 on the third attack. But those are all of the mod definitions currently in Star Wars Hunters. I obviously didn't go through every single mod for every single character because most characters will have very similar things. If you feel like I missed anything, then please do let me know in the comments. And obviously I'll update this video when more definitions come out. But that is it from me today, guys. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you did find this video useful. Thank you all very much for watching. May the Force be with you always.